What is your current net worth?
833,676. And that was as of last week.
Wow. Look at that. As a
So I
single
hope to be
mother.
over $1 million this year. Hopefully,
Wow.
fingers crossed. Depends on what the market is going to do.
What is up, guys? Jason here. Welcome back to the channel and our series, Nurses to Riches, The Road to Fire. In our last episode, we had a conversation with Ivan, the informatics nurse with a net worth exceeding $300,000. In that episode, he tells us what steps he took to become an informatics nurse, working from home for more than 50% of his work week. But today, we have a guest whose story I know you guys are going to enjoy. Her name is Naseema. She goes by Financially Intentional on Instagram. She has over 100,000 followers, has written a book, has her own podcast where she talks to nurses who are also on the quest for fire. And she does it all while holding a nursing job as a single mother. So, like with every other nurse we've spoken to in this series, we're going to talk to Naseema about her nursing career, her finances, her net worth, and her future goals. And with that, Naseema, go ahead and introduce yourself. Let us know what state you work in and what led you to become a nurse.
Hey, that was a dope introduction, by the way. I'm Naseema. I'm a labor and delivery nurse of 13 years. I work in the San Francisco Bay Area, California. And actually, I have a non-traditional path to nursing. I actually was in healthcare administration for several years. I have a master's in healthcare administration and hated it, but all my friends were nurses and I loved the autonomy. Like they was always traveling and they kind of just shaped their career however they wanted to. And so I was like, I'm gonna be a travel nurse. I'm gonna go to Dubai. I'm gonna be a prince's fourth wife and I'm gonna live the life, right? So like that was my whole goal of becoming a nurse. But ultimately by serendipity, I got into Ucsf nursing school, and that's an accelerated nursing program, which means that you have to do a master's degree on top of that, and got into an F&P program. And so did my nursing school, came out, was a mom baby nurse while I was in my master's program. Did not do great in my master's program. As a matter of fact, I was held back a year in my master's program. But right, in my second master's, right? It was like
it's tough though. Hey, being a mother while going to nursing school, accelerated.
I wasn't a mom yet. I wasn't a mom, but I was Black. So that's what happened. But
come on, Naseema.
Hey, I'm for real. That's what happened. And so I got held back in like the 20th grade, but I ultimately did get my F&P, but I still work as a labor and delivery nurse.
Wow. Yeah. So what year was that?
I graduated with my nursing license because you don't get a degree at UCSF in 2009. And then I got my F&P in 2012.
So you went straight into it. You said you were practicing as a mom baby nurse.
I was working as a mom baby nurse while I was in school.
Wow. That's tough. So I get it.
Yeah, I had a full-time job. Yes, I did.
Yeah. But you finished pretty quick.
It wasn't the toughness. Yeah, it wasn't the toughness of the program. It was that I'm not necessarily the best test taker. And it was just like one class where it was just based off of 2 multiple choice tests. And even though I'm like, I knew the answers to the question, I'm just not a great multiple choice test taker. And so that's all it led down to. It was like 2 points that I was off by. And I had to get held back a year. But that's a whole nother story.
So did you do anything with your F&P at all?
Not at all. I was so like part of my remediation was to work in a clinic. Like, so it's like, I don't know, nursing school, it's like hazing, right? It's horrible. Yeah. So like, part of my remediation was the person that failed me. I actually had to go work with her in a clinic. And so like, then she realized, oh, she does know this stuff. Like I was like running. Because that's what I did, right? And so I finished that program, but I had PTSD, and so I didn't want to be an F&P. And plus, F&Ps in the Bay Area, you already know, make less than nurses, and the job is like, I don't want to prescribe, promethazine and codeine and Viagra all day. Like that's what I felt like it would be, and so I just didn't do it.
Yeah. It's funny because I work with a lot of nurses that have their NPs, their FNPs. And they're still in the ER with me. They have not left. because they've
It don't
looked
make any
at other
sense.
places they could work, and they compare their salaries and the amount of work, and they're like, you know what, I might as well just work part-time in the ER and make just as much as I would have been making as an FNP.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah.
So do you remember how much you earned in your first job as a mother baby nurse?
I think it was like $50 an hour.
Damn, that's pretty good still, because
Yeah.
everybody else I've spoken with, they're like, well, I made $22 an hour. I made $30 an hour.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
you got to keep in mind that's in the San Francisco Bay Area, but that was actually
exactly.
one of the lower paying hospitals in the Bay Area.
Wow.
It's a county hospital, and so it was
Yeah.
a lower paying hospital. Their pay has changed a little bit now, but they're still
Mhm.
kind of on the lower end of the Bay
Mhm.
Area. So now new
Yeah.
grads coming out usually make about $75 an hour on average.
Yeah. And you're still at UCSF?
No, I'm so
You work
traumatized by
somewhere
that
else.
place. I can't even. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to
Okay.
share where I work? Are we doing
No,
that?
you don't have to. You don't have to. So where you currently work, are you still a mother baby nurse?
I'm a labor and delivery nurse. So I did mom baby
Wait,
for 1 year, and then I got trained for labor and delivery. And then I moved to the current hospital that I'm working at now. So I'm going on 11 years at this hospital.
wow. And do you
Mhm.
enjoy where you work?
Oh, I love where I work. I love my job. I especially love the environment now because the leadership has drastically changed. It was very traditional hospital leadership, like all whites. Like this hospital is like the only hospital in the area where you have to wear white, except for surgery and labor and delivery. We wear scrubs because we do surgery, right? But yeah, it's one of those traditional hospitals. But the leadership has changed over the last couple of years, and it has been a very enjoyable place to work.
That's cool. And
Yeah.
do you know how many hours you currently work?
36. Like I do 312s
Yeah.
typically.
Cool.
I mean, it's on very few occasions I do stay over, but it's not my norm.
Wow, you don't stay over. I remember you posted one of your paychecks previously, and you were like 200K or something like that.
No, but that's mostly so like towards the end of the year, there
Mhm.
was like times that I had to stay over because half our unit was taken out by COVID. And it just so happened
Wow.
that my mother-in-law could stay with me and watch my kids. But other than that,
Oh,
like
that's awesome.
I'm a single mom. I have to pick up my kids and
Yeah.
drop off my kids. My dad helps. Their dad helps sometimes, but like during the week it's me. And so typically I don't have the opportunity to stay over. So the most I can ever stay over is like 4 hours, maybe once a week. But I rarely do that. So yeah, and it's $200. Yeah, it's $200,000 on basically just 36 hours a week. Yes, that's how it works.
That's
Here.
crazy.
Yeah.
So what is your hourly rate currently?
Currently, shoot, dang, it just went up. And so
Come
for
on,
me, I
girl.
have to factor in, I know, right?
Yeah.
I have to factor in my charge nurse pay, my weekend. Let's just say it's between $95 and $100 an hour as a staff nurse. I think it's 104 actually. I
Is
just
that
did
day
this
shift,
math.
night shift, evening?
I only work nights. Yeah, I don't mess with day shift. $104 an hour. That's it.
$104 an hour.
104.62.
Okay, so for those of you people who do not believe that nurses earn over $100 an hour in California, there you have it.
And this is
It's
a benefited
possible.
position. If I was per diem,
Wow.
which I'll
Yeah.
probably go, it'll be closer to $130 an hour.
That is insane. Because I know Monica, my wife, she works per diem, but she's earning 118 an hour. So it's not even close to what you guys are earning at your hospital.
But
That's why,
you know, the hospital, we get paid
yeah,
the
well, I
best, one of the
know.
best in the region.
And for those
Yeah.
of you that don't know, Naseema works in the highest paying hospital in California and actually the entire country. I have a
No,
spreadsheet for those of you that don't know.
I think El Camino gets paid a little bit more.
No,
Really?
actually,
Ours be
you guys are neck and neck. You guys are neck and neck. It depends on which shift, or because El Camino also has weekend differentials. So depending on which shift and which differential, sometimes your hospital is higher and sometimes El Camino is higher. So you guys are like really neck and neck.
Okay, yes, I love it.
Okay, so how many kids do you currently have?
I have 2 girls, ages 3 and 8.
And I know you mentioned that at one point you were working a lot of overtime because you had help. Me personally, I have Monica. Like we have 2 kids, and I don't even know how you do everything that you do because I haven't worked any overtime, and I'm only working 20 hours a week. And doing this YouTube thing, I don't know if you noticed, but I stopped posting on Instagram as much as I used to. And part of that
It's
is
hard.
because, I mean, yeah, it is hard. You post every day.
I do.
It's really hard. That takes so much dedication. And the fact that you're able to do that as a single mother, I give it up to you. I tell everybody, I'm like, we when Monica and I we had our daughter before our son came along, we were like, oh, thank goodness she's gonna be 18 soon. She's gonna be out of the house. We can focus on ourselves. And now we have a 1-year-old at home. But Monica, she's been picking up shifts. She's going to be over 200K this year. And me,
Nice.
I'm probably only going to reach like 130, but that's working 20 hours a week,
I mean, but
right?
your household income is over
Yeah,
$300,000. Like,
right.
that's
I know.
bomb. That's bomb
I
right
know.
there. And your cost of
I,
living, I know where you live, is
yeah.
very affordable. So, like,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
dope.
for sure.
That's goals.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually work with some nurses. Oh, man, this is one nurse. Him and his wife are both nurses. And last year, this guy just started working for our department, maybe like a year and a half ago. No, almost 2 years now, because he started during COVID. But from the moment he got employed by our department, that entire year, he was working almost every single day. Him and his wife made close to 600K, if not over 600K that year.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I get it, but it's like, what are you
Yeah.
doing with that money? And
Yeah.
then, like, what about work-life balance? Like, I
Exactly.
could,
Yeah.
but why would I?
Right. Yeah. So one reason why I'm only working 20 hours a week is not only because I'm, at home taking care of my son. It's just because before he came along, I was working a lot of hours. Not, and I don't know if you saw, but I was doing runs, and runs is when you're working like
Mhm.
several days consecutively. I
That's
was
too
doing a
much.
couple of those, and I was just exhausted. I got so burnt out that I told myself I need to take a break from all of this. Plus, my mom is not even living with us anymore. She went to New York
Oh,
City for about 8 months to almost a year. She's coming back soon, so that's going to help. But
yeah.
while she was gone, I was like, this is too much for me. I am not going to pick up any hours. And Monica actually picked up the slack. Thank goodness for her. But, I mean, it's tough when you're working so many days in a row or picking up so much overtime. You don't realize how much it can easily burn you out.
Man, and I'm old. I'm way older than you guys, so I get
Right?
burnt out hella easy.
No, come on.
I'm like, listen, my
Yeah.
body cannot. Like, I am in recovery mode right now. I basically did just like 5 days in a row, and my body is like,
Yeah.
"Big, like, what are you doing?"
No. Yeah. You know what? Those 12-hour shifts, they take a toll on your body. I work
They
eights,
do.
you work 12s. I remember when I was working 12s at my department this was only like 3-4 months. And I was like, that's it. I got to go back to eights. I can't take this anymore. And the fact
Yeah.
that I'm able to, if I do pick up on my days on, I'm able to get the time and a half, that's why I
Mhm.
enjoy my eight.
That's dope that you can, after 8, it goes into time and a half. And you know that they'd be like, "You want to stay?" Like, every time.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then, if the fact that I'm working, like I'll work one day on and then I'll have 5 days off. And then I come back and I pick up one day. I can actually, if I wanted to, I could pick up like a 12 or a 16, like each one of those days. And it wouldn't be that bad because I'll still have time off in between.
See, that's
But
good. That's really dope how
yeah,
you do your
yeah.
schedule.
But I don't know
Yeah.
if you saw, like, I work with one of these nurses that works 16-hour shifts every single day of the year. I mean, she has not taken a break in over a year and a half. I don't know how anybody
Listen, I
does
want to
that,
see
right?
abs.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of nurses that I work with are on like day 30 plus, and that's a lot of them. It's not just like one nurse here, one nurse there. It's a lot of them. At least 10 to 15 nurses that are doing that.
I know a lot of people, that's like their lifestyle. Like, they get into this
Yeah,
thing, and I'm just like, why are you doing that? Is there like an end goal? Like, is there
right?
something? I understand if you're doing that like for a purpose, but a lot of them don't, and I don't
Yeah,
get it. I
I
really don't.
know. Like us, right? I know
Yeah.
what we would do with our money.
Exactly. Like, that's the whole
Yeah,
thing. I can see, like, listen, I'm about to take the rest of the year off. Let me knock these
yeah,
shifts out. Let me make sure I max out my 403B, my 457, and I'm
exactly.
out. You know what
That's
I'm
right.
saying? Like, I
Yeah,
get that.
yeah,
But I'm gonna take a break. Like, the whole thing is I'm gonna take
exactly.
a long break at the end. Like, I'm
Oh yeah.
not
Yeah, I work with another nurse who made 500,000 plus last year, and she told me she doesn't even know where her money went. Come on,
Exactly. No,
how do you
that's
do that?
facts. That's facts.
Yeah,
That's how people think that they can out earn like their financial ignorance.
Yeah.
And then they get themselves in these holes. Like I'll figure out my finances when I make more money. You make more money and
Yeah.
you still repeating the same habits because you haven't addressed the problem, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we know what it is.
Right. Okay, so let's get to the good stuff. Okay. Do you plan to retire early?
Probably not.
Okay.
But the whole
Okay.
thing is, listen, the
Yeah.
whole
Go
thing
ahead.
is work is going to be optional for me.
Wait.
So the thing is, this like running my business is hard. Going to work and
Yeah.
delivering babies is actually a passion. I'm really good at it and it's really easy and it's very lucrative, right? So
Yeah.
this is how I would structure my life. And I call this nurse fire, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
I work when I want to and I don't work when I don't want to. The rest of the time I do the things that I love. But the thing is that I have already set myself up so that in 2 years, so by the time I'm 40, well, no, I'm 40. So by the time I'm 43, 44, I will have enough saved in my investment accounts where I could retire and at traditional retirement age, draw down about $90,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
And so that's close by to me because my cost of living will be probably like low, like $8,000 a month. Like that's about like what that equates to, right? And so I'm just like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like that's if I don't contribute another dime to my retirement after 2 years. But I am going to. And so at that point, then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just like work 3 months on, 3 months off, still, contribute to my retirement account, still max out my 403. I'll probably do my 457 more than my 403B because your 457, you can take that money out at any time without penalty because it's just deferred compensation. And the benefit of being at this hospital that I work at is that we have a 403B and a 457. And, do my Roth IRA because the Roth IRA is clutch. If I had an HSA, I would do that, but we don't have that. But I'll just do that, make sure I'm maxing that out and then work whenever I want to. And that way it's not like work because I'm very passionate about bringing children in this world. And I'm very passionate about being a Black female labor and delivery provider because of the Black maternal and morbidity crisis that we have in this country. And I think that my role in particular, just my presence there is super important. And so I don't ever want to give up that power that I have to be able to shift the system. And so I will semi-retire early, but I'm working on my terms. And best believe, listen, I come to work and I do my job and I'm the best. I show up as the best damn nurse that I can be. But listen, if HR try to pull me to the side or they try to make me do some extra stuff, I'll be like deuces and holler at my lawyer. Like I don't play no games. So that's how I show up. Right. And I think that that's the role of a financially independent nurse is to be able to show up fully as yourself, to be able to be 100% an advocate for your patient, but to be able to sustain yourself if you have to walk away for whatever reason. And we know that happens. Sometimes you get fired because, you're not complying with the specific policy or, people hate on you. And that's typically what it is. People just hated on you and try to get you fired.
Right? Especially when your presence is all over social media and they know about it.
Yes, exactly.
Do your coworkers know that you are on social media?
What's crazy is that I started this platform working there. And so they've seen me grow. So for the most part, my coworkers are like, they have benefited from it, right? And so they know when they support it. It's when new people come into the mix and they're just like, oh, and then they try to start. And then we just like, so you don't know. So you're not reading the post though. You see my presence, but you're not reading the post. So you don't know I'm not the one. I'm not the one.
So for those people that don't know, what is a 457B?
So a 457 is you typically offered when you have a 403B. And a 403B is similar to a 401k, except it's for like teachers or government organizations or organizations that are classified similar to like firefighters, like public service, right? Yeah. And because the hospital that I work at has some kind of weird government classification because it's part of a township, it's really weird. It's really weird how they set it up, but it's beneficial because we have access to the same benefits like our local firefighters, our local policemen,
Mhm.
our teachers. So we have a 403B. And then in addition to a 403B, you have what's called deferred compensation, which is a 457. And with the 457, you get the same tax savings. So you get like if a 403B or 401k, you can say
For your time.
pre-tax, pre-tax like 20,500, you get the same benefit in a 457. Wow. So now instead of just being able to max out the 20,500 in my 403B, which drops my taxable income, now I can contribute another 20,500 to my 457, which now drops my taxable income by $41,000 a year, which in California is really important because we get paid so much as a nurse, but our taxes are crazy high. And so now my taxable income, if I made $100,000 a year, would go down to $60,000, which drastically decreases your tax bracket, but exponentially increases how much you have saved in retirement. So it's no benefit. The other benefit of 457 is you could take it out at separation or whenever. You don't have to wait. Yeah, you don't have to wait to traditional retirement age. You could roll that over into a IRA when you leave, or you can just leave it at the organization and take distributions when you want it. So it's a dope ass early retirement tool because now that chunk of money was, and then you pay regular taxes when you take it out. But you could just leave it there and just pull from it as you need to. And so I love it as early retirement. No penalty, just taxes due.
Wow. Damn, I didn't know all of that.
Yes. It's
Girl, you
dope.
hit the jackpot.
Who you telling? That's why I won't leave. I'm like, you gonna leave before me. So you want to play games? What's up?
And you said you contribute into your Roth IRA. How do you do that, making as much as you do?
I do a backdoor Roth. So if you make over the income limits, which I think like if you're single, it's like 104. If you're married, it's like 2 something. And I can't remember the numbers right now, but Google it. But I make over the income limit for a Roth IRA. So what I do is called a backdoor Roth. And the way that works is every year I contribute to a traditional IRA. And then there's literally just like one button that you push in the back end. Like once it's fully funded, I put my $6,000 a year in there or whatever the maximum is. I push a button that says convert and I convert that into a Roth IRA. And then that's it. And the benefits of doing that is now I have this, my 403B and my 457 money that's like taxable when I take the money out, right? But your Roth money is not taxable because you've already paid taxes on it and all the growth on it is not taxable. So I have my diversified taxation streams, right? This is taxable, this isn't taxable. And so it just depends on like what my money is like. So if I'm like taking a year off and I'll go live in Costa Rica and I'm not generating any income that year, I will pull from my tax, like my 457, which is taxable. But because I'm not generating any money in that tax year, my taxes are going to be close to nothing. Right? Or in years where I may work half a year, now I'll pull from my Roth and then it's not taxable, right? So it's levels. It's about game. It's about learning how to play the game.
Yeah. I'm telling you, you're doing it right. So what is your current net worth?
It's $833,676. And that was as of last week.
Wow. Look at that.
So I hope to be over $1 million this year. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Depends on what the market is going to do. But this is from like in 2015, like I started my financial journey, and in 2017 was able to pay off $1 million in debt. So I basically started from zero at 2017 and started build like wealth accumulating from there. So like this is just to show you the impact of being intentional about your finances and how short a period of time you can turn your finances around.
And I know this number is huge. You know, when you say you paid over close to $1 million, I want you to like briefly break down exactly how you went about doing that. Because it's astonishing, you know, the fact that you were able to do that. You were in so much debt and now you're net positive with your net worth.
When I started my journey, I was like a total Dave Ramsey fan. And so like I did like the whole financial piece kind of like thing. And I did the debt snowball and the zero-based budget. And that really, really worked.
Yeah.
And so I did have some assets to sell. I started my journey, and this is really before I started paying off my debt. I had a condo in LA, and I sold it for a little bit of a profit. And I sold off like I paid off like some big things, but it was like before I really started learning about my finances. And then once I started learning about my finances, I learned how to budget intentionally. And from that point, I paid off like another like another almost $300,000 in debt. And then towards the end, I was going to be debt free by my 26th birthday, but two things happened. Because I was Dave Ramsey and I wasn't investing while I was paying down debt. I had to pay the IRS $30,000, and then I went through a divorce and I had to pay him $15,000, and I had just a little bit of student loan debt left. So I had about $50,000 of my debt left. And then towards the end, I sold my house and became totally debt free. But a lot of people are like, well, you just sold your house and became debt free. No, that's not how it works.
No,
At the
no.
end, I sold my house and became debt free. And that's because of the stuff that was tacked on at the end. And so, yeah, that's how that journey went. And believe me, it was under 3 years, but every day of about 3 years, I was feeling it. And it wasn't that it was hard. It was just that it was intentional work, like every day. And so when I say it's a marathon, it's a marathon. But when people look at the numbers and they're like, wow, it really took you like a short amount of time. No, it's not a get rich quick scheme like you want it to be. This is work. You got to put in the work, and you have to be intentional.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize it takes time. It is not easy. And, it can be very enticing to just go on a nice vacation and spend your money on luxury items. I know it feels great when you do that. But once that money is now owed to a creditor and you realize you're going to be paying that for a certain amount of years, you tell yourself, is this really worth it? And that's one thing you learned early on, and why you're not digging yourself into that same hole over and over and over again, right? So how many years ago did you really start investing your money? If you
So I
start from
didn't
day
start
zero.
investing until 2017. So that
Wow.
these investments have just
Yeah.
grown over the last 5 years.
That is
And
insane.
so, yeah, but that's how compound interest works. And I just
Yeah.
invest in index funds. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
fancy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't do nothing extra. Like, this is just my money that's invested in index funds. Like, that's it. And people
Yeah.
people overcomplicate things. It's just like, just get in the market, just start investing now, and time
Right.
is going to show you,
Yeah.
how much you can build wealth. Like, just stop tripping, stop trying to overanalyze. It ain't that hard.
I don't know if you work with any colleagues of yours that are into cryptocurrencies, are into, investing in individual stocks, and probably have lost a lot of money over the last couple of years. But I work with a lot of those types of nurses and doctors. And I tell them all the time, if you stick to index funds, that's the safest investment you can possibly get into. And they have a good track record of being good investments,
Yeah, I tell people that it's just simple. Like, if you want to do all that extra stuff, less than 10%. Just put less than 10%. I understand the lore. I understand like how it's gone crazy. And actually, right now, I recommend it's at the bottom. Go ahead and invest in it, but make sure it's only like 10% of your income.
Yeah.
Because it's just too risky. Like, index funds are a sure bet for me.
I agree. So what is your current monthly budget? What do you spend your things on? And then I want you to tell me how much you have left over at the end of the month.
Like $12,000 a month is my expenses. My take home like varies depending like from 14 to 16, 18,000, depending on what I'm working on. And so all of that stuff just gets reinvested either back into my business or into investments. I only keep like $1,000 in my savings account.
Yeah. And, being a business owner, a lot of people don't realize when you say you're spending a lot of money, it's actually reinvesting a lot of money. Because I know a lot of the stuff that I end up purchasing, I don't know if you saw that reel that I posted recently, but I had to like upgrade my studio. And
I saw that. I was like, wow.
Over the years, I've been spending a lot of money on this studio, and it just keeps adding up and adding up. I follow this YouTuber who has over like 2 or 3 million subscribers at this point, but his studio is worth close to like $500,000. And it took him years to get to that point. But That's my goal right there. I
But
plan
you know
to
what,
invest a
Jason? You're
lot of
gonna
money.
get sponsors. You're gonna get brand
Yeah,
partnerships. That's gonna pay for half of your studio anyway. So
right.
you'll be good.
That's true. And I noticed you have been getting a lot of sponsors lately, right?
Yeah. And that's the whole thing is that I want to, like, most people that come to me are at the point where they have spent the money, like they're broke and they're looking for a solution. So I don't necessarily really want to charge them for my services, even though there does have to be like a little bit of point where you have to pay to play, because then, if you just offer for free, most people aren't going to follow through. But like a lot of my coaching and my services is super duper cheap and affordable. And then I'm able to bring you free content in the back end because I have companies that pay me, or I have speaking engagements that pay me. So my money doesn't come from charging you, boo. Like that's not
Yeah,
where it comes from.
yeah.
My money comes from the back end because I provide valuable content and share these brands with you, or these companies that can help you but don't have access to you, because typically personal finance has been, looked a little bit different. And so they can't speak the same language as I can speak to you. They can't break down concepts. And so I have a very unique audience that they want access to. So they have to pay to play.
Makes sense. That makes sense. So how many
Yeah.
student loans do you have? Do you have any at all?
Zero.
Okay.
I paid
Okay.
all of my student loans off, and I wish I
Okay.
didn't, because I would have had all this time. So that I messed up. That's one of the biggest mistakes I made. Okay. This is true story. Okay.
Yeah.
So like my student loans, I was aggressively paying them down where I should have been focusing on paying them down, but while investing and kind of balancing that out a little bit better, because ultimately, I lost $80,000 by not investing while I was paying off my debt. And even more because, like I said, I had to pay the IRS $30,000 because I wasn't reducing my taxable income. So now what? That's $110,000 that I lost because I wasn't investing by paying down my debt. And now look at it, like COVID, all y'all with student loans been out here having zero balances or zero payments, and that all counts towards. And I was on public service loan forgiveness. That was another benefit of working at my hospital. I qualified for public service loan forgiveness because of the classification. So I could have had zero payments for all this time and been able to contribute to my retirement account and all that stuff, but I didn't do it. So even though I'm debt free, I wish I could have made a better decision as far as how I paid for my student loans.
Yeah, I don't know if you've watched my other videos before, but there was this one video I made where I said that me and Monica, during the pandemic, because we were working a lot of overtime and they cut it all off because the pandemic hit, they had cut off elective surgeries. People weren't working as often as they were before because the hospitals thought they were losing too much money. So Monica and I had no savings in our bank account. We had so many loans we had to pay. We had our auto loan of $70,000. We had a loan that we used to purchase our house for $70,000. So we told each other, when overtime does become available, we're going to pick up as much as possible. And we did. We started picking up and we ended up paying $128,000 of that within a year. But at that point, when we paid it off, we realized if we would have waited on our student loans because they paused the loan repayments at the time, we could have reinvested some of that money because we also paid off all of our student loans during that year. And it was just like, I thought about it. I'm like, damn, did we really have to pay off our student loans? We could have waited. And that
let me tell you something, Jason. I'm sure. Right. But I'm sure, Jason, like you are not tripping about paying off them student loans because they are a freaking hassle. Let me tell you something. I do not regret having to deal with those student loan servicers. It was the bane of my existence. Oh my God.
I agree. The fact that we don't have any debt except for our home, which is going to get me to my other point. Do you own a home? Are you renting? What are you doing right now? Living expenses.
So I own a house. I believe your house shouldn't be more than 2x like your annual gross pay, and mine falls under that. But also, I always have an extra room that I rent out to travel nurses. Wow. So that decreases my mortgage by $1,000 a month. My mortgage is like $3,000 a month. Yeah. So $2,000 a month in living expenses in the San Francisco Bay Area is not bad. So that's what really I always post my salary, and then people are like, "But you live in the Bay Area. That's like making $20,000 in Alabama." No, it's not, boo.
Yeah,
it's not.
You know, if I could get a nickel for every single time I heard somebody say that, I would be a millionaire by now. People
Exactly.
have this misconception of what it's like to live in Northern California as a nurse. You don't have to spend millions of dollars on a home. Like me and Monica, well, we live in Sacramento and it's much lower, the cost of living here. But there are other parts in Northern California, closer to the Bay Area, where you can also get, homes much cheaper than what you see on TV. Like on television, all you hear is the expensive homes that you can buy in the Bay Area. But it's not all like that. That's the median price of homes. That means that falls in the middle. So there's homes that are way below that, and there's homes that are way above that.
You just have to be a little bit strategic. So
Yeah.
I have a friend that works in my hospital. He works in the ER. He lives in Shreveport, Louisiana. He comes out here to work, right? So he has an apartment in San Jose, a 1-bedroom apartment in San Jose, which is only $1,000 a month.
What?
And he splits it with another travel nurse.
Oh,
so he only pays $500 a month to live out here when he works. And that him and another travel nurse just rotate their shifts so that, they're not there at the same time. They only work like 10 shifts a month each. But like that's like $10,000 or more they're making a month here versus what he would make in Shreveport, Louisiana. And what he does is take his money and invest it back in Louisiana, where he's owning blocks. Like you talking about buying the blocks, like he owns blocks in Louisiana. So like there's power in being able to do geo arbitrage and, work in the Bay Area and live other places. And I know you be trying to put people up on game. I be trying to put people up on game as well. Like it doesn't mean just because we get paid more, like we can't do anything with our money.
Yeah. And I often do get asked by nurses in other states if it's possible to work in California and then travel back home. And I'm like, I have coworkers that do that. It is possible. You can work per diem here also and just pick up whenever you want, and then go back home on your days off. It's totally possible.
I have coworkers from Canada, Florida, Georgia, all over Texas. They're per diem, so they're like $120 an hour on average, and they only have 4 to 5 shifts a month minimum. That they have to work, and that's it.
Yeah, that's very similar to Kaiser also. And the way they do it with Kaiser is you just have to work 4 days in 2 pay periods. So you can put those 4 days at the beginning of one pay period and then come back at the end of the next 2 pay periods. So you can be off like, 50 something days if you choose to do that. So you can take a break in between.
Or a lot of people work the end of one pay period, the beginning of the next, and then have so many days off.
Exactly. Also, I know you've mentioned this before in your previous posts, but what kind of car do you drive?
I drive a Tesla Model X.
Okay.
It's 2017.
Okay.
So it's almost 5 years old. It'll be 5 years old December 27th. Yes. So I don't believe in deprivation.
See, I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous video, but Monica and I at one point we're gonna buy 2 Teslas. Only because we said to ourselves, well, our current monthly payment on our car, this was when we had a note on our car, was $1,270 a month, right? On one of our cars. Yeah. That was on our Volvo. We have a Volvo XC90. It was like a 70-something thousand car. And we were like, oh, if we get a Model X, we can just replace it with an even lower monthly payment. And then on top of that, maybe we can get a Model 3 also. So we'll have 2 cars. But
I used to have a Model 3 as well.
Oh, man. So why'd you jump up to the Model X?
No, I had a Model X first, and then I got a Model 3 because I was doing Turo. And so my transportation costs were super low. Like it was paying for my cars. And so my whole thing about personal finance is if you can control your household income, keep your living expenses low and your transportation expenses low, then you're winning, right? That you just invest the rest. And I'm like the latte factor thing. Buy as many lattes as you want, but keep those 2 things low. And so I got a Model 3 because I wanted a Model 3, but I wasn't going to drive it all the time. So I put it on Turo. And that thing, it paid for itself. I paid the price of the car and the insurance. And it was only being driven a couple days out of the month. And then I had an extra car. It just got totaled. And actually in this market, it got totaled, and I bought it for like $30,000 something. And when it got totaled, the, with the chip shortage, how the price of the cars like skyrocketed. And so they had to pay me like 40 something thousand. So not only did I never have to pay a car note on it, I actually got paid for having the car, like $10,000. So I just pocketed it and I didn't get another car.
That is amazing. Did it get totaled by a Turo driver or?
Of course it did.
Oh, man.
Of course it did.
I know you must have been bummed initially. You're like pissed. You're like, oh man, this was my car. What am I going to do? And then you found out you actually ended up winning in the end.
I did. Let me tell you, it was not a great process to go through. Like, it would have been better if I totaled it, actually, because my insurance would have just paid it off real quick. But Turo, let me just tell you, like, Turo is good at all things when it comes to like the automation, and their software is really, really good. Their IE is really, really good. Really? But the customer service, like when you have to deal with humans, not so much. So. That's just my 2 cents on Turo.
Yeah. So you don't plan to be on Turo anymore after this? Is that what it sounds like?
I would, but I just need to know the systems. I don't have the time right now, but I would do it again. But the price of the cars is so high now. Like that's the only thing. Like I'm like so bummed. Like I got my Model 3 for so cheap. Like man, I would, and I love that little car. It's so zippy. It was a bomb.
So, with all the stories you keep telling me, I always wonder, why don't you have a YouTube channel?
I don't know. It's like, okay, so this is the whole thing, right? Is that I know that I only have the energy for one social media. I mean, like one outlet, one kind of media outlet, right? And because I've had my Instagram for so long, that's what I focus on. I've tried to do YouTube and all of that stuff. It's just a whole nother learning curve, right? So you're bomb at YouTube, your video, your quality is great. Like I don't have the the bandwidth to invest in that right now. And I know I probably could be good on YouTube. Like I probably would enjoy it. But then I have to learn, like, I mean, I do know like thumbnails and all that other kind of stuff and just make sure to stay up with that algorithm. But it's enough to just keep up with Instagram and that crazy ass algorithm. And the bottom line is I want to focus on my own platform, because at the end of the day, YouTube could be gone. I don't own that. Instagram could be gone, TikTok, same for all of those platforms. And so I build my own stuff in the back end where, I have my community and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm focused on.
So I remember when we found each other on Instagram, I went through your website and listened to some of your podcasts before we started recording. You mentioned that you have how many podcasts that you've recorded in total?
Like I have like 200 episodes, but also I have been on so many podcasts, like it has to be like 300 podcasts. So if you just type in like Naseema McElroy podcast, like, listen, there is no way you can't know all my business. Okay. Like that's what I be telling people that date me. Like, listen, just Google me. Okay. Like I don't have the time. I don't have the bandwidth to like go over like all my backstory. Just Google me, get back to me if you have some questions, but the shit is out there. So, and I'm very transparent. Like, so there's no excuses.
So how were you able to manage the podcast and writing a book and doing Instagram? What does your daily schedule look like?
It's crazy, but because so like I said, I work usually like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? And so those are the days that are easy to get help. So either my dad helps me or my youngest daughter's dad like takes both of my kids. And so that is like, I cannot be without them. And then so I just kind of schedule all of my stuff on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, where I have that dedicated time off. And then I know on those Thursday, Friday, Saturday, my brain ain't gonna work right. So I don't schedule stuff on those days. But let me tell you something. When I was writing this book, I wrote my book in 8 weeks during the pandemic, during like moving, like I was getting my house built and I moved and all this kind of stuff. And then I went through a breakup and like all of those things like compounded, like broke me. And so I had to take a break. So I'm really just now coming back like 99% of where I was at. In like April of last year is when I kind of took a break. I had to like hard stop. Like I can't do all of this stuff. Like I had to take a break. And so like I feel like it's up to what you can manage, and you have to set your expectations to what you can do, and don't try to follow somebody else and think that you can do what somebody else does. Like for me, if I'm not doing a lot of stuff, I feel very unproductive. Like if I have one thing to do, I probably won't get it done. But if I have
Yeah.
like 20 things to do, I'll get it done. But that's my personality. That's how I work. And so you have
Yeah.
to know how you work. And so, like, I'm the person, when I was in college, I went to college full time, and I always had a full time job. And then I had a hair shop. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Wow.
that's how I've
Yeah.
always worked.
Yeah.
And I was in my hair shop 6 days a week.
Oh,
So,
man.
yeah.
So are you going to continue with the podcasts, or are you going to stop them altogether?
So my podcast is coming back in full force, and it used to be called Nurses on Fire, but I'm rebranding it for the Financially Intentional podcast because I want to broaden the audience. But it's going to be y'all nurses rocking with me along the way. But I want to bring in some more people in the personal finance space that I think you guys should know. And then I'm going to bring in some more experts. Like I'm going to have a standing segment with my lawyer that's going to talk about workplace rights. I'm going to have CPAs, CFPs, all kind of experts on there, nurse lawyers as well. So I'm just going to broaden it out a little bit more so that it reaches the general audience. But yeah, it's back. It'll be back out in September of 2022.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So if someone's looking for you, how can they reach you?
So just find me on Instagram. I'm always on Instagram at Financially Intentional. I also have a website, financiallyintentional.com. I have some amazing things coming down the line, amazing ways where you can work with me, a lot of great brand collaborations that are coming down the line, just a lot of things that are super exciting for my audience. So make sure you're following Financially Intentional. Make sure you're signed up to my mailing list from financiallyintentional.com. So that's where I'm at.
All right. Okay, Naseema. So that is the end of our episode. And I am so glad you hopped on this call with me. You are one of my favorite guests. And I follow you every single day on Instagram. I'm always following your posts. I love them. And, I'm glad to have had you here.
Same here. And I'm super excited to actually finally get to talk to you. I've been following you. I'm like, how don't I know these guys? Like, they need to be my best friends. And so this is like so exciting. And I can't wait to continue to work with you.
All right, that's it for today's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did. And if you did, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, make sure you watch our previous episodes, and follow us on Discord if you want to communicate with other nurses and potential nurses that have similar interests as you. Also, if you want to be a guest in one of our future episodes, make sure you hit the link in the description below and book an appointment to be selected as a potential candidate in one of our future episodes.